chew bubblegum.
You're listening to Hear the Chew Bubblegum, recorded from a secret location in the city that moves mountains.
Greetings.
We come in peace.
Week number 2 on 104.9 WXLR.
How do you feel about that?
That still makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up.
It's pretty exciting, isn't it?
It's very exciting.
Let's just say 104.9.
WXLR.
The
Sounds really good. I drove around in my truck from 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. last Sunday listening to the show.
Did it sound good?
It sounded good. Normally I would say I hate the sound of my own voice.
I do too.
I did not realize I was as congested as what I was when we filmed when we recorded the show a few weeks prior. But hopefully you fans enjoyed it. That is the main thing.
That is the main thing.
You know, let Eli and the rest of the guys at WXLR know, hey, Goose and Cronkite with Here to Chew Bubblegum, great show. Please,
They're doing some stuff over
please
there.
keep them around.
Yeah.
Now, you had a recent UFO sighting.
I did.
Again, for the second time in, 2 months?
Yeah. Did we talk about the first one on the show?
We talked about it on the podcast. We haven't talked about it on this show.
All right, just kind of recap. I guess back in February, actually you saw this one as well. We were talking on the kind of the southeastern side of town here. We saw, I saw 2 rather large blinking objects. At first thought they were helicopters or airplanes or whatever, but they were blinking rapidly, blue, green, red, white, blue, green, red, white, over and over and over, and they were in sync with each other.
Yes, they were.
I messaged you. You actually come out of your wherever you were at, I guess home at the time.
I was home.
And you looked up and you saw 3.
Yes.
Kind of in a triangle, or were they in a
They
line?
were in a triangle.
Okay. So fast forward to Saturday night. I see the same lights that I saw then, but on the northwest end of town, and they looked like they were kind of moving in the same direction at the same speed, which was crazy.
Fascinating. But yet you failed to call or text me like you did last time. Thanks a lot, buddy. I know who my friends are.
It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. You're kind of old. I know you sleep.
Well, yeah. If you ever call me at 2 o'clock in the morning,
I better be dying.
I'm going to put cookie dough in your eyes or something.
Yeah, better be dying. Is
Mashed
what you're saying.
potatoes. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. We did have some listener comments and stuff. We want to read some of those.
Okay.
I've got 3. You've got 5. So I'll start out. Timmy says, love the show. With the Mars rover in the news, have you been following the story? I find myself searching daily for new pics or videos. I was wondering if you guys do the same. Roswell. Yes, I do.
Yes. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't say that I spend hours on the internet looking for the videos or pictures, but man, there's some clear shots coming from there. It's nice.
Very, very, very nice.
One of my favorite ones is the night sky on Mars. Have you seen it yet?
I've not saw that one yet.
Oh, it's nice. Moving on. Tom says, Goose and Cronkite, do you think we will ever know the truth until there is an actual alien landing? I think there's already been an alien landing.
I think that we will, and we'll be talking in segment 1 about an article that came out. And I found it today. It was a USA Today article. And we'll talk a little bit about that in segment 1. I think we will.
Yeah, definitely. Well, an actual alien landing. He probably should have said a publicized alien landing, because I'm pretty sure that's already happened.
So let me get this straight. You think if they do land, that the government's finally going to say, hey, they do exist, be here Saturday at 12 o'clock as we welcome E.T. to...
No.
All right,
that's not what I mean. What I meant was, he says, do you think we'll ever know the truth until there's an actual alien landing? All I was saying was, I think there's already been an alien landing.
You just think it's going to be publicized?
No, I said what I mean was there's already been an alien landing, but if there was a publicized alien landing, then they would have to say, yeah, they're here.
Okay.
That's how I was getting at.
I get what you're saying. Dan says, Goose and Cronkite. I read that American Airlines is not denying the possible UFO sighting. The American Airline passenger jet traveling from Cincinnati to Phoenix encountered a UFO over northeastern New Mexico. What's your thoughts? That recently happened. Mm-hmm. We've talked about that on the podcast show.
We have.
And after that, the FBI didn't deny it either.
Mm-mm. No, I mean, like we've talked about, it's going to continue to get harder and harder for denial. I mean, everyone has a phone that has a camera in it now. Everyone has a camera phone that is pretty good at taking pictures now, and it's going to be harder and harder to start denying this stuff.
Do jitterbugs have cameras in them? Does yours have a camera in it?
I don't know. Does yours?
I don't have a jitterbug.
You have a flip phone sitting over there with large, very large numbers on it.
What does your next email say?
My next one is from
comment.
Mine is from Richard. It says, "Hey there, here to chew bubble gum. As we all know, the CIA released declassified documents to the Black Vault website. Do you think this is leading up to full disclosure?" Everything is going to lead up to full disclosure. I think that we began to be groomed from even the 60s with our movies and our television shows, our science fiction shows, things like that. I think that they know that the world public is going to react a certain way.
Right.
So easing everyone into the idea that would be the smartest way to do it. What do you think?
I think you're right, and I agree with you.
Okay.
Wendy says, "Hey guys, this is a random request. Say the first thing that pops into your head after you read this." Pop-Tart.
Nice.
That's what popped into my head.
Okay.
What about you?
Cheese tacos.
Why? Why did you say cheese tacos?
I don't know. Why did you say Pop-Tart?
I don't know. That is a good question. I guess because you said, say the first thing that pops into your head. So I thought about popcorn or Pop-Tarts. The second time I just read it, I thought about popcorn.
Mm-hmm. I just like tacos. Tacos are always on my mind.
You're always thinking about food.
That's a fact. Carlin says, "Very cool, Goose." Didn't say anything about Cronkite, but that's all right. Man.
He means very cool Cronkite.
This is very cool, Goose.
Sorry, buddy. Go ahead. Do you have some more?
Sure. Justin says, "Just found your podcast through Eli."
Yes.
Say the last
through
name.
Eli.
Through Eli. I love all things weird. I don't get to do much on my podcast, and it's a solo deal most of the time, but you guys are killing it. Well, thank you very much, Justin.
And I reach out to Justin, and our next roundtable show, we'll probably have him come in Bunker Studios and be a part of it.
Oh, it's exciting.
So that's very exciting. So, and you are learning not to read people's last names. I'm so proud of you.
Getting there.
I mean, the look when you stopped and you said that, the look on my face, I know, had to be like of a parent watching his child take his step for the first time.
Mm-hmm. I'm getting there.
Well, everybody listening can contact us right after Cronkite reads this last.
I have Luke.
Luke.
Yeah, he says, "Great show. Congrats on the radio show. You all are doing very well with this podcast. Proud to be your friend. I'll be calling the station to support your show. By the way, the Mantell UFO incident was a great choice to include."
Well, thank you very much, Luke. That is Luke Fugit. He has a YouTube channel. Be sure to check him out. But if any of our listeners want to reach out and contact us, it's easy to do. You can always call, text, or leave a voicemail by calling 606-373-3396.
Or you can email us. You can email Goose at heretochewbubblegum.com or myself, Cronkite, at heretochewbubblegum.com. You can also email the other two gentlemen on our show, Elliot and Ned, by reaching out to heretochewbubblegum at yahoo.com. Please put "Attention Ned" or Elliot in the subject line, whoever you wish to speak with. We also have a Facebook page. Please feel free to comment there.
Thank you very much, and that's right. And also, do not forget to contact the station, 104.9 WXLR, and let them know that you enjoy Here to Chew Bubblegum.
I'm going to contact them right now.
Good. Well, you probably will, because you called some other people on the show last Sunday.
I did.
We were talking about this before we started recording. You had no idea I was going to bring it up. But an upcoming UFO report will be difficult to explain, says former National Intelligence Officer. A former top National Intelligence Officer hinted that an upcoming government report on UFOs will include information that cannot easily be explained. He goes on to say that there are instances where we don't have good explanations for some of the things that we've seen, And when the information becomes declassified, I'll be able to talk a little more about it after that. Former Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe told that to Fox News last Friday. Ratcliffe said that some UFO sightings have been declassified in the past, but a report to be released by the Pentagon and other federal agencies will present more information for the American people. There have been sightings all over the world, Radcliffe said, and when we talk about the sightings, the other thing I will tell you is that it's not just a pilot or a satellite intelligence collection. Usually we have multiple sensors that are picking up these things. The report is expected to be released on June 1st, 2021. Now, what's your take on that?
Well, I mean, they were given 180 days, right?
Correct.
I'm excited. I'm looking forward to getting into kind of going through the trenches of what they've got to declassify. But also at the same time, I'm afraid it's going to raise more questions than answers.
And possibly. But when I read that earlier today, and then when I read it just then, something that sticks out of my mind, and I don't know if he meant to do this, but when he said we have multiple sensors that are picking these things up, did he kind of let the cat out of the bag, so to speak, on something?
It's very
because, all right, you say UFOs don't exist. If you think UFOs don't exist, or alien life or technology, first, why would he even make the statement that, he's not that, let's see exactly, I don't want to misquote him here, that the government does not have good explanations for what some of these are. First, why would he make that statement? And second, the multiple sensors that are picking these things up. If the government didn't know that they exist, why would they have sensors in the atmosphere or orbit or wherever they have them to alert them of these things? Imagine how much that would have cost to put these sensors in operation.
Well, and he's not talking. It would be interesting to know if he's talking about sensors that are just to detect crafts or objects or whatever, or if they were there already for, say, what was Reagan's
in the 80s.
Yeah, what was it? Project.
Star Wars.
Yeah, Star Wars project. So it would be interesting to know if those were there from then. Excuse me, and if those are what's picking up, and also. When we talked about UFOs, and they've recently changed the name to UAP.
Yeah, I don't like that name.
I don't either, but somebody made a good point where if you call it a UFO, anything can be a UFO. But a UAP, or if you call it a UFO, then you're acknowledging that it is something, that there is something there. If you call it a UAP, there's a little more wiggle room.
Here's my take on that, and we've talked about it before. I think that they've changed it to UAP. So, and they've already said last April, UAPs exist. I think that they have changed it because they're going to tell the public that UAPs exist. I don't think that where they have kept the secret so long, they can't say UFOs exist.
Right.
Because that's going to make them to be liars.
Sure.
And be questions. So by changing the name of it to a UAP, and we're going to say, yes, these do exist, even though they're the same thing, more or less. Do you get what I'm saying?
No, yeah, and you make a good point there.
It's going to make them look really bad if they say UFOs exist.
Yeah.
After they've told us for years, no, they don't exist.
Right.
But UAPs do.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point. But, I mean, when has a government ever cared if somebody called them a liar?
True. So, but this is the new era of... we don't hurt people's feelings.
Oh yeah, that's true. I forgot what era we were living in. That's true. Right.
So you really can't call them a liar because you might hurt their feelings now.
Yeah, that's true.
Sorry. You're going to talk about the. I just found that article fascinating. If you guys listening want to read more, that's a USA Today article. Just go to usatoday.com.
That's fascinating, and I'm excited for June the 1st because I want to read that in its entirety, even though it's probably going to be like 15,000 pages.
Are you going to read it all?
Out loud on the show.
Now, you want to talk about Britain's Roswell, correct?
Yes. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, some, yes.
Well, I covered it once on the podcast.
Yes.
And it's one of the most I guess the most famous UFO in Britain, and they call it the Britain's Roswell. But in late December of 1980, there was a series of reported sightings of unexplained lights near Rendlesham Forest, which have become linked to claims of UFO landings. The events occurred just outside of RAF Woodbridge, which was used at the time by the United States Air Force. USAF personnel, including Deputy Base Commander Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt, claimed to see things they described as a UFO sighting. Its most famous events to have happened in the United Kingdom, ranking among the best known and reported UFO events in the worldwide. Now, the reason I like this story, or this particular sighting, is it was probably one of the most well documented. And even though when you read the report on this, you can even see you can see them trying to cover it up all the way through it, and it's amazing. Even though there's no way, you cannot cover this one up. So around 3 a.m. on December 26, 1980, a security patrol near the east gate of RAF Woodbridge saw lights apparently descending into the nearby Rendlesham Forest. These lights have been attributed to astronomers to a piece of natural debris seen burning up as a fireball over southern England at the time. See, there we go. That's the first one. Servicemen initially thought that it was a downed aircraft, but upon entering the forest to investigate, they saw, according to Halt's memo, what they described as a glowing object, metallic in appearance with colored lights. As they attempted to approach the object, it appeared to move through the trees, and the animals on a nearby farm went into a frenzy. One of the servicemen, Sergeant James Peniston, later claimed to have encountered a craft of unknown origin while in the forest. Now, a craft of unknown origin, does that sound familiar?
Yeah, sounds like Roswell.
Sounds very much like Roswell, but more recently, was it last April when it said we don't?
Right. Yeah, you're talking about when the government released their videos.
Yeah, we said these crafts are of unknown
origin.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, so that seems to be a key phrase for them. While in the forest, although there was no publicized mention of this time at the time, there was no cooperation from other witnesses. Shortly after 4 a.m., local police were called to the scene and reported that only lights they could see were those from a nearby lighthouse. It was a few miles away. After daybreak in the morning of 26th of December, servicemen returned to a small clearing near the eastern edge of the forest and found 3 small impressions at the ground in a triangular pattern, as well as burn marks and broken branches on nearby trees. At 10:30, the local police were called out again, and this time to see the impressions, which they thought could have been made by an animal. What animal do you know
that has triangle feet? I don't know.
Yeah, it's not
a triangle lapis.
Is it like an alpaca?
Yeah.
Okay. So the Deputy Base Commander, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Holt, visited the site several servicemen early on 28th of December 1980, and they took radiation samples, and of course, it was off the charts, or it wasn't off the charts, but it was like, hey, there's radiation here. And later on, they would he recorded the events on a tape recorder, and later on would be known as the Halt tapes, the Halt recordings. And you can still listen to those, and those are pretty cool.
I have listened to some of those before. There might actually be on YouTube as well. Just search it's HOLT, right?
HALT.
HALT.
Yeah.
Halt tapes.
And there's no way. I mean, this. I wish we had more time to dig into this because this thing is just dripping with sighting. It's got it written all over it that there was something there, that something had landed, something did something there. All right, it's not an animal. It's not a lighthouse. It's not anything natural for a forest.
Right.
It is 100%.
And like we've said before, it was close to a military base.
Yes, very much
and,
so.
And we've said this on last Sunday's show, anytime you have a military base, a power plant, large bodies of water, that's where people seem to see a lot of UFOs at.
Very much so. And what we talked about There were a lot of sightings. A lot of sightings picked up around the 30s, 40s, and 50s. A lot of sightings picked up around the 70s and 80s. And I think a lot of that has to do with, I think you've made this point before, our nuclear weapons. What did we do in the 40s?
Right.
We were developing and even used nuclear weapons. 70s and 80s, the height of the Cold War. I think that this is... I think that's got a lot to do with it as well.
Right. Well, here's a question. I've never asked you this on the show before, straight up.
Oh, no.
What year or years, or how long do you think the government has known that UFOs do exist or been in contact with them?
I think they've been in contact with them at least since 47, since Roswell.
Since Roswell.
But I want to say that probably before that, because in 1936, the Black Forest incident happened in Nazi Germany. And
that's where people say the Nazis got a lot of their technology, because at that time during the war, and we've talked about this on the show,
yes,
they had fighter jets.
Yes.
We did not.
And missiles and rockets and everything else.
And we did not.
Exactly. And I think that after the war, or maybe even during the war, there was probably contact at that point.
Right.
So at least 47, maybe a little earlier.
Okay. Stanford Abduction. I want to talk about it real quick here. We've talked about this on the show before. If you're not familiar with the Stanford Abduction, it happened in Kentucky between Lancaster and Stanford. On January 6, 1976, Mona Stafford, she was 36 years old. Her and her friends, Louise Smith and Elaine Thompson, decided to drive 35 miles from their home in Liberty, Kentucky to have dinner at the Redwoods restaurant. They were driving a 67 Nova when they got there. They had a great time together. None of them drank.
That was your first car after you got out of college, wasn't it?
No. Actually, my first car was an 84 Vet.
It was brand new?
No, mine was an 84 Vet. Chevy Chevette. So, for real, true story.
Chevette, gotcha.
I love my Chevette. But on the way back home, like I said, none of them had drank alcoholic beverages. And they had turned off Highway 27 onto Highway 28. And just outside of Stanford, a curious thing happened. A bright red object appeared in the sky, which Mona Stanford thought at first was an airplane on fire. As the object descended from the right side of the road to a point ahead of them, they could see that it was not an airplane, but a huge object bigger than two houses. The object stopped about 100 yards from them, stretching across both sides of the road. It rocked back and forth for a couple of seconds and then moved to the left. So what do? They keep on driving and assume that whatever it was had kept going. However, after a quarter of a mile down the road, the blue lights appeared through the rear of the car. At first, they thought that they were being pulled over by the state police with its flashing lights, but they soon realized that the object was flying and it had circled around them and had come up behind them. Suddenly, Louise Smith tried to wrestle control away from the car. As the accelerator engaged, she took her foot off and it kept going faster. The speedometer reached speeds of 85 miles an hour. Mona Stafford in the front passenger seat tried to help Louise regain control of the car, but it was not possible. The women began to feel a burning sensation in their eyes. The ignition lights lit up on the instrument panel, and the indication on the car's engine stalled, but they were speeding along. They saw a wide, brightly lit road coming ahead of them seconds later, and the scene became Highway 78, and they recognized they were on the outskirts of Hudsonville, a full 8 miles away from where they had just been. When they checked their time, an incredible hour and 20 minutes had passed. Wow. Now, we've read cases before of people in cars or planes where their clock stops, where they have electrical problems with their instrument panel in their car. And you and I believe that that is an interference from a UAP or a UFO.
Yes.
And why do you think that they give off that? Is it the electromagnetic field?
I think it's a lot of the magnetic, because we even talked about if these craft operate the same way that the real stuff that we talked about, the anti-gravity magnetic stuff.
Right.
I call it stuff because I don't know how to explain it other than that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That would make sense. I mean,
hey, you're talking to Cronkite, not Bill Nye, the science guy.
That's exactly right. But if you put a magnet to a television, it screws the television up, right? So it would make, if you have something that's able to lift a craft and move it through an atmosphere, through space, through whatever. I mean, yeah,
you're going to have some power.
Yeah, it's going to mess with some stuff.
Well, the ladies eventually got home, and some of them found red line marks on them, and burns on the back of their necks. They all had burning, irritated eyes. All of them did. Let's see. Eventually, these ladies shared their story with the local Navy office. They called the police and the local Navy office, but neither showed up, and neither showed any interest in their story. So they later reported to Jerry Black of MUFON, and he set up an interview with the three women. And during the interview, the ladies had a lie detector test. Guess what?
They passed.
They all passed with flying colors. In July of 1976, a Lexington Police Department detective, James Young, separately gave the women the lie detector test. And like you said, they all passed. Later that evening, continuing into the next day, extensive hypnotic regression on the women were performed. The sessions were similar to the story of Barney and Betty Hill to explain the missing time. They were also medically examined by shadow beings, they claimed, and later identified as being similar to depictions of aliens.
Wow. And
that is just a brief tale of the Stanford Abduction that took place in Kentucky. If you've never heard about that, that is a fascinating case. Be sure to look that one up.
Definitely. And even on this podcast this last week, didn't we have a gentleman that wrote in, and it kind of had an eerily similar feel to it?
Yes, he did. Are you talking about the midweek moment?
Was it the midweek moment?
Yeah, you're talking about Stephen.
Yes. I apologize.
That is no problem. We're going to take a break and have Elliot's article. Greetings.
We come in peace.
The City of Coal Run Village Mayor Andrew Scott and City Commissioners Beverly Joe Osborne, Big Joe Atkins, Trey Deskins, and Mike Steele encourage you to shop local.
With over 200 businesses, the City of Coal Run Village offers games, restaurants, gas, auto parts, cars, and much more.
You'll find all of this and more in the City of Coal Run Village. Shop local and shop often.
It's now time for Ned Said on Here to Chew Bubblegum.
Cronkite is now offering private dances for 2 easy payments of biscuits and gravy.
When you want fresh, authentic Mexican food, you want El Picante in Coal Run. Dine on sizzling hot fajitas, the freshest pico de gallo, or if you're craving their secret ingredient jalapeno dip, the only place you'll find it is El Picante. Look, there are Mexican restaurants on every corner. The difference is in the mouth-watering food and the great service you'll get at El Picante in Coal Run. Visit El Picante for lunch today.
Researching the inner workings of the net to bring you stories of the strange and unusual. It's Elliot's Articles on Here to Chew Bubblegum. Take it away, Elliot.
Good afternoon, good evening, whenever you may be listening. This is Elliot with Elliot's Articles here on the Here to Chew Bubblegum show. Last week we talked about the Louisville dogfight when a Louisville helicopter patrol was actually involved in a dogfight with a UFO that happened around March the 3rd of 1993. This week we're going to take a look at a different article from the Courier-Journal, this time written by Leslie Scanlon, who was also a staff writer for the Courier-Journal, and it is called "The One Thing Clear Is What the UFO Wasn't." Now, last week, before I get into the article, we talked about how 4 police officers actually saw the UFO, 2 were in the helicopter and actually were involved in trying to chase it down. The UFO supposedly fired 3 fireballs at the helicopter, and the helicopter lost track of it and lost sight of it. This week, we're looking at a follow-up article. Now, the article starts out by saying, "So you ask, just what was that strange glowing object in the sky that skirmished with Jefferson County Police helicopter last Friday night?" The National Weather Service doesn't have a clue. The air traffic controllers at Stanford Field detected nothing unusual on their radar. The security staff at General Electric's Appliance Park, over which the apparent encounter took place, saw just the police helicopter. But a UFO investigator, while remaining non-committal about the Louisville case, said the description the police reported of a bright pear-shaped object that shot 3 baseball-sized fireballs at them shortly before midnight does match reports of UFO sightings from the 1940s and 1950s. Those reports, which have been carefully studied by government investigators, sound an awful lot like the case you just reported to me, said Bill Pitts of Fort Springs, Arkansas, director of a UFO investigative group called Project Blue Book. Usually only 10 to 20% of the thousands of UFO sightings reported each year are unexplainable, said Walter Andrus, international director of the Mutual UFO Network, a Texas-based group that investigates sightings. Most of the time, he said, investigators find that something mundane caused the observance, anything from unusually bright planets to weather balloons to falling fragments of rockets. "I believe that the people saw something," said Bob Myers, a star enthusiast and former president of the defunct Stargazers of Louisville group. "But I don't necessarily believe what they saw is the kind of space vehicle driven by some kind of alien being. 99% of the time, there's an explanation." Whatever did happen, a Courier-Journal story yesterday in which 4 police officers swore that they had encountered a UFO provoked a spasm of interest. The police got calls from reporters of the TV tabloid show Hard Copy and about 75 citizens, some of whom said they had seen the UFOs too. Although no one can say for sure, people with scientific backgrounds said yesterday that the UFO was probably not a plummeting meteorite. It didn't seem to be moving consistently in one direction, said Alan Johnson, a professor of material science at the University of Louisville's Speed Scientific School. An incoming meteorite usually streaks across the sky, he said, with this one appearing to be dancing around. It also wasn't a lightning ball or fireball. This phenomenon sometimes occurs during intense electrical storms, but last Friday night the snow stopped falling at 7:48 p.m. The temperatures were in the 20s, and a solid cloud cover was beginning to scatter across Louisville, and Louisville experienced no thunder or lightning. "No way," said Rick Lasher, a spokesman for the Louisville office of the National Weather Service. It also wasn't a known aircraft, although many can exceed the 100 miles per hour at which the helicopter pilot said he was traveling when the UFO zoomed past him and instantly climbed hundreds of feet. John Dressman, a professor of mechanical engineering at the Speed School, said he's not familiar with any military or other aircraft that could have done that. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, there was still interest in this story, and there's still actually interest to this day. Now, later on, a resident of Louisville did say that he had let loose a weather balloon project, and that was probably what it was. But as most of you know, especially people who've listened to this show before, the majority of UFO sightings are always said to be either people chasing the planet Venus, like Captain Thomas Mantell, or a weather balloon, like in the Roswell case. It's always, as the article said, usually chalked up to something mundane. But that night in Louisville, something happened, something that a lot of people can't explain, and something that 4 police officers witnessed themselves. So what's out there? look to the skies, ladies and gentlemen. Dear listeners, please stay vigilant. Elliot out.
When you want fresh, authentic Mexican food, you want El Picante in Coal Run. Dine on sizzling hot fajitas, the freshest pico de gallo, or if you're craving their secret ingredient jalapeno dip, the only place you'll find it is El Picante. Look, there are Mexican restaurants on every corner. The difference is in the mouth-watering food and the great service you'll get at El Picante in Coal Run. Visit El Picante for lunch today.
Are you a horror movie fan?
Yeah, I dig horror movies.
Are you searching for a great internet horror talk radio show to listen to?
Why, sure, that sounds quite spiffy.
Then you need to tune into deadpit.com. It's the original horror talk radio show. Dead Pit is a show by the fans and for the fans. Uncensored and unbiased opinions are the goal of the show, giving fans honest reviews on new films and vintage classics of the horror genre. Make deadpit.com your #1 horror station destination.
You can always call, text, or leave a voicemail for Here to Chew Bubblegum. 606-373-3396. You can also send an email to goose@heretochewbubblegum.com or cronkite@heretochewbubblegum.com.
Greetings.
We come in peace.
The City of Coal Run Village Mayor Andrew Scott and City Commissioners Beverly Jo Osborne, Big Joe Atkins, Trey Eskins, and Mike Steele encourage you to shop local.
With over 200 businesses, the City of Coal Run Village offers games, restaurants, gas, auto parts, cars, and much more.
You'll find all of this and more in the City of Coal Run Village. Shop local and shop often.
You're listening to Here to Chew Bubblegum. If Abraham Lincoln were alive, he'd listen. But he's dead.
And we're back. You're listening to Here to Chew Bubblegum on 104.9 WXLR. I'm Goose, and across the table from me is my good friend Cronkite.
No,
we're supposed to say Cronkite.
Well, I thought you were being nice and going to introduce me.
No, I pointed at you, so that means that's where you speak up.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Well, I'm Cronkite.
Okay.
How we doing?
Good. Doing good. So, now we're going to talk about U.S. patent number 10144532B2. This is a craft that uses internal mass reduction device. And guess who has a patent on it?
I'm going to say the U.S. Navy.
You are correct, sir. On April 28, 2016, a patent was filed for this mass reduction device, filed by the Navy. Let's see. It was given priority on that same day, April 28, 2016. November the 2nd, 2017, it was assigned to the Department of Navy. The application was granted on December 4th, 2018. Basically, what U.S. Patent 10144532B2 is a craft that uses internal mass reduction device that is comprised of an internal resin cavity wall. Basically, the electrical charged outer resistance cavity wall and the electrical inner cavity wall, yada, yada, yada. Basically, what this is and what this looks like is a triangle UFO.
Really?
Why would the Navy patent something? Why would they spend money to first patent that and then try to make this device? Because you actually, I'm pretty sure you have to have it made before you get a patent on it.
Well, that explains a lot of the sightings we've seen.
Yes, it does. Yeah. And we've said before that, there's man-made UFO sightings or extraterrestrial.
Right. And so, all right, so this is a internal mass reduction craft.
Yeah.
So what that says to me, it would be something similar to a craft that would be able to make high-speed turns ascend and descend quickly without the pilot
getting sick,
collapsing, or dying from just the sheer movement of the
Correct. Now, you have a little information about who invented this device, correct?
I do. So it was invented by Salvatore Cesar Pace, who is an American aerospace engineer and inventor who worked at the Department of Navy until later 2019 and early 2020. Wasn't able to figure out why he's no longer there. He received his advanced education at Case Western Reserve University in Ohio, graduating with an MS in 1993. Mm-hmm. In 1999, he received his PhD in mechanical and aerospace engineering from the same university for the subject of bubble generation under reduced gravity conditions for both co-flow and cross-flow configurations. Pay's research was sponsored by NASA and tested in 1992 on board the space shuttle STS-50. Now, that's just the STS-50 is just the mission. It's not the actual shuttle.
Correct.
His patent applications on behalf of his employers have attracted international attention for their futuristic sounding technology and potential military and energy producing applications, but have also led to speculation that they may be misinformation intended to mislead the United States strategic adversaries about the direction of the United States defense research. His patents applications include piezoelectricity induced.
Just a lot of space stuff.
Room temperature superconductor with the function of enabling the transmission of electrical power with no losses. Now, this wouldn't be the first time that this conspiracy has come up as far as being able to, or feeding out a bunch of misinformation. If anybody believes that.
Now, there's some people that claim that Pacey's inventions are a part of Americans' misinformation campaign designed to lead Americans' adversaries on a fruitless wild goose chase.
Right.
Which means basically that they're saying the Navy patented this, so if China or South Korea, North Korea, Russia, or some other country gets it.
South Korea's our ally.
Or what? How do you know if
if
somebody
like
patents a spaceship?
Yeah, if it comes to something like that, allies are just
exactly
just allies. Just paper.
I mean, but if somebody finds this, they're saying that the U.S. patented it and has no intentions of mass producing it or making it. They're just throwing it out there as a smokescreen. Now, here's some interesting facts. If you search Dr. Salvatore Pace, P-A-I-S, there's almost no digital trail of him. He has no social media, no website. You can find a few news articles about him. He's not actually with... What agency was he with there when you read that?
He was with...
Was it NASA?
Well, he was NASA, and then he worked at the Department of Navy.
He no longer works at the Department of Navy. He no longer works at NASA. And you can't find anything really written about him after 2018. Some people have claimed that he don't exist, that he's just a what would you call it, a John Doe mystery man figure.
He could be.
And they claimed that the real inventor of this device or craft is Roger Sawyer, who in the early 2000s was given credit for inventing the EM drive. Now, Roger Sawyer is also an aerospace engineer, just like Dr. Pace, and also worked for the Department of Navy. Now, if you have one guy working for you and he made an invention, and you patent this invention,
yes,
and you build it,
yes,
wouldn't you make sure that guy got credit for it? Why is there so much secrecy over this?
It could be something similar as to why there was so much secrecy over the Manhattan Project. This could be a weapon of war.
And you are correct. Now, here's something else that I want to throw out. You said that he received his education at the Case Western Reserve University in Ohio.
Yes.
Now, guess what else is in Ohio? The Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton is less than 4 hours from that university. Now,
why is that significant for our listeners?
Well, we've always said on the show that when the supposed weather balloon or what was the other one? The nuclear balloon or whatever that they claimed that crashed at Roswell.
Internet balloon.
Did I didn't say internet balloon, did I?
No.
Okay.
I was just making that up because it was that's what. Oh my gosh, that was what someone had said. The most recent one that we saw over here.
Yeah, around here. Well, basically, the reason that we always point at the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is because the stuff that was collected from Roswell, New Mexico, was transported to the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Hangar 23, I believe.
Yes, it is. So that's why we always say, there's like a, not necessarily conspiracy, but a huge question mark on what they really do at that Air Force Base.
Exactly. And, now, Dr. Salvatore Caesar Pace could himself be
legit.
The U.S. Navy.
One person, the whole U.S. Navy?
Can
I mean, all right. Me researching him, and this is just my opinion on what I've read on the internet and researched and investigated. I don't think he exists. I think that's somebody that they fabricated a long time ago.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is like the U.S. Navy had this patented,
Yes.
or it was under the U.S. Navy.
Yes.
But for whatever reason, they wanted to have a name attached to it instead of just the U.S. Department of Navy.
Now, why wouldn't they credit Roger Shaw for it?
It's a good question. I don't know. I mean, that still leaves a huge loop. All
right, I'm going to throw something out at you. What if Roger Shaw wanted to share it with people? What if, the EM drive some way provided free energy and electricity? Like Nikola, I'm not saying they silenced him.
You're saying they silenced him?
No. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, what if they did the same thing to him that they did to Nikola Tesla, which was to discredit and not silence him? I'm not saying that at all.
Well, and that wouldn't be the first time that they've discredited someone. The someone we spoke about last show, Bob Lazar, was discredited. Is attempting to be discredited still today. So, I mean, yeah, that does sound like that.
But can you imagine if we had free energy, the way that would change things?
Absolutely.
And I'm not talking about free gasoline. I'm talking about free electricity.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, and free electricity turns into electric vehicles, electric air travel, electric everything. Free energy is free energy. And that might be the biggest issue with this is there's no money in it. If you have free energy, nobody's making money off of it.
Right. Well, and I'm not saying that that's what they've done in this case. I just think it's really funny that we can't find much more information on Salvatore Pace. So
very true.
That's what I'm saying.
Very true.
Well, moving on to the Ronald Reagan obsession with UFOs. You know who Ronald Reagan was, correct?
I do.
He was the U.S. president.
He was also an actor.
Yes, he was.
That's where I know him from.
So you only know that because Doc Brown said that in Back to the Future.
Yep.
So
that's the only place I know him from.
President Ronald Reagan's UFO obsession. He was president for 8 years. Whether you love or hate him, he did have an obsession with UFOs. Reagan not only had a well-known interest in UFOs, many suspected he was aware of much more than he let on. At times, the former president would all but fuel these speculations with curious statements in the most public arenas. At least he would always profess his belief in alien life. His own daughter even stated her father was obsessed with UFOs and life on other planets. Now, before he took the oath of office and became president of the United States in 1980, he had 2 separate UFO encounters. The first one was likely an abduction. The exact dates of these encounters are ambiguous, to say the least. The incident happened somewhere between 1967 and 1975. Reagan was then serving as governor of California. He and his wife Nancy were on their way to attend a Hollywood-type party. By the time they arrived, unbeknown to them, they were an hour late and had a strange story to tell. They'd saw a strange light flying at the side of their car as they made their way along the highway. Reagan stopped the car so that he could get a better look. Both he and Nancy viewed the strange light for several moments, only before continuing along their way. Speculation is that the missing time Ronald and Nancy were seemingly experiencing was proof of an alien encounter. Whether Reagan pursued any type of hypnotic regression therapy to recover from that time is unknown. The second incident happened in late 1974. While flying to Bakersfield, California, a strange, bright object became visible to both Reagan and the pilot. The strange craft remained at the side for several moments before vanishing at an alarming speed. Neither Reagan or the pilot could offer a satisfactory explanation for the object. As you could imagine, there are many theories concerning Reagan's time in the United States. He developed, like you said earlier in the show, Star Wars. He stated that the reason he wanted Star Wars is it was a defense system against the Soviet Union during the Cold War. But people claim that the truth actually was it was a protective measure against known hostile extraterrestrials. In 1985, the fall of the Soviet Union had not been assured, but the wheels of progress were already in motion. Reagan had met with Mikhail Gorbachev. They had begun a relationship as leaders of both Russia and the United States. Reagan felt comfortable enough to ask Gorbachev an interesting question during a high-level diplomatic talk break. Reagan and Gorbachev took a short break, and they went on a walk. Let's see. It goes on to say that the two leaders, each in control of the most powerful militaries on the globe at the time, and actively working to prevent a nuclear war that could mean the end of all mankind. They walked and talked in secrecy, not sharing details of the conversation with the rest of the world for decades. It wasn't until 2009 that this short conversation came to light. In the midst of their high-level talks, Reagan had a different threat on his mind. That threat, Gorbachev would soon learn, was also unusual, and it was downright out of this world. President Reagan was certainly a fan of science fiction, and he famously relayed elements of his and Gorbachev's conversation 2 years later in a speech he delivered before the United Nations. What's your thoughts on that so far?
Well, that's wild, and then this is probably as close to disclosure from a sitting U.S. president that we'd ever come close to.
Correct.
Now, the Reagan diaries. Are you going to talk about that any?
Yes.
But I would love to. I would love to see more of that, but I don't think there's a whole lot that's available.
Right. Well, in his speech to the United Nations, he said in 1987, in his speech to the United Nations, he said, perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bond. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside of this world. And he said that in 1987. Now, you were talking about his diary. On June 11th, 1985, this is one of the entries in his diary. He had met, let's see, he wrote in his diary, lunch with top 5 scientists. It was fascinating. Space truly is the last frontier, and some of the developments there in astronomy are like science fiction, except they are real. I learned that our shuttle capacity is such we could orbit 300 people.
Wow.
And he said this, June 11th, 1985, is when he wrote that in his diary.
And that's what, 30 some years ago?
Yeah,
30,
yeah.
What, 33 years ago?
36 years ago.
Oh.
Because it's 2001. So in 4 years, it'll be 2025. That'd be 40 years. 36 years ago, my friend.
Awesome public education system going on.
Yes, thank you.
Well, so imagine what it is now. Imagine what our capabilities are now compared to 30, whatever you said, years ago.
Yeah. Well, let me read that one time. And this is an entry in the Reagan diary. Lunch with top 5 space scientists. It was fascinating. Space truly is the last frontier, And some of the developments there in astronomy, etc., are like science fiction, except they are real. So what other developments did you think that there could be?
Exactly. That's what I say. I would love to get a hold of more of that diary.
And that is from the Reagan diary.
And this kind of goes back to something we talked about on the podcast when we talked about Dr. Stephen Greer in the documentary that I told you about. He says that the government has the capability to have a false flag operation, which is basically an alien invasion.
Correct.
This kind of goes back to that. Maybe someone is taking that, because I don't believe that Reagan had any hostile intentions towards the Earth.
No, he did not.
But this has also been 36 years
36 years, sir. We just did the math.
36 years ago.
I mean, but think about this. It's 1985, the mid-'80s, and our shuttle capacity is such we could orbit 300 people.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, how many members of Congress are there? Are there 300?
Don't put me on the spot.
Well, look that up real quick.
I think there's...
because think about that for a second. That's a specific number in 1985, 300 people. And I'm just curious, if there was 300 members of Congress in 1985, or, they had to have 300 in mind for something. Didn't Stephen King have a book or something wrote called 300? That was about aliens or something like that, or... but if any of our listeners have never heard of, President Reagan's UFO obsession, please research that. If you have any questions, please contact us here at the show. You can do that by calling 606-373-3396, or you can email us, goose@heretechewbubblegum.com or cronkite@heretechewbubblegum.com.
So there were 100 senators,
okay,
435 representatives, and 5 voting delegates,
okay,
not non-voting delegates.
Okay, so there was more than 300.
Yeah, but...
Well, okay.
And who's to say that wasn't just the testing phase?
What if that was just one ship?
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, there...
One shuttle that could seat 300 people in orbit.
If we had more time, we could go down a deep rabbit hole with all this. So Project Solar Warden, we'll save that for another time. But I mean, research it, look it up. It's pretty neat. Again, this is stuff that we could go down, and maybe something we'll visit soon.
Do they give a ship capacity in Project Solar Warden?
No. Well, I did share something with you you and Ellie a while back. You remember the 2 ships that were supposedly videoed but looked like CGI?
Yeah.
So supposedly that was part of Solar Warden, supposedly.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating to me. I mean, 300 people.
You gave me that look like you're buying into stuff again.
No, not at all, my friend. But it's getting about that time. We're going to have to wrap it up. What do you want to talk about on next week's show?
I've had a couple of emails regarding the Denver airport, so I think I'm going to dig into that a little bit.
Good, because I've always been fascinated about that.
Yeah, I think I'm going to dig into that a little bit.
Also, next week, we will be talking about the Paintsville train versus UFO incident.
Very cool subject.
And
very cool.
We will also be talking about a Perry County, Kentucky UFO sighting from, I think, 2012, late 2012, early 2013. So... the Denver airport, Paintsville, Kentucky train versus UFO incident, and a Perry County, Kentucky UFO sighting or something there that happened in 2012, 2013.
Well, it sounds like a show dripping with goodness, Goose.
It sounds like a show dripping with ear candy.
Ear candy. That's exactly right. And where are they going to be able to hear that at?
They're going to hear that right here on this station, 104.9 WXLR. Next Sunday, 10 p.m. for Here to Chew Bubblegum. Before we go, I want to say special thanks to Carlin for all the voiceover work, CK Uncle Bill, ST3B, and the rest of the gang at deadpit.com. That'll do it for this week. We'll see you next week, and until then, so long for now.
We'll see.
Thanks for listening to Here to Chew Bubblegum. Tune in next time as we dive deeper into things the government doesn't want us to know.